What's up guys, it's Minx. In today's video we're going to be adding the ability to spawn enemies at a nearby location instead of, or at the nearest location, instead of at a random location. So this is going to be the last thing we add just really quickly before we start working on patches and stuff and adding things to the menu. But I thought this one would be kind of fun to do. Um, so with this one, we're going to be doing just another thing similar to spawn enemy at random location. I'm just going to do internal static void spawn enemy at uh, nearest location, we'll say, because it is technically the nearest every single time. One thing to note with this, because I was testing it, I'm like, well, that's not very near on the inside. Sometimes, or not sometimes, vents open as the game proceeds, and so if a vent's not open, it may not spawn super close. It may spawn at the nearest vent. So we may want to do like a vent fix thing where we open all the vents at the beginning of a game if we're gonna do like custom enemy spawning. I don't know, maybe it could be like a toggle where the thing says, oh yeah, open all vents or whatever. I don't know. That may be something we want to do later. But for now, we're just going to do a similar thing. So enemy name equals empty. And we're going to do an int, but it's not going to be a mount. We're going to do int player index. And we're going to set it equal to 0 by default. So it's going to default to the host. And in this case, what we're going to be doing is so we could choose the player that we want to spawn it near. So I'm thinking I'll have a list of player buttons, and it will say spawn enemy on player, spawn enemy near player, and you have whatever. You can spawn an enemy at X, Y, or A, B, C, and D, and yeah. So I think that will be pretty fun. Um, so with that, we can do game object player equals start of round dot instance dot all player objects player index. Oops. Okay. And we need one more player reference. So that's our we could say player object obj. We're not going to use that for a lot. Player controller B player, and I'm just going to say we'll just say player ctrl. We're again not going to use this a lot. Equals start of round dot instance dot all player scripts. And it's going to be passed in the same way, player index. Tried a few different ways to do this, or it's we just get the object from the controller, or vice versa, and it didn't seem to work. Something to note here: so if you've ever done game development, you'll kind of understand this a little bit. Your player controller is separate from your I guess you could call it a pawn. I'm more used to Unreal Engine, where you have a pawn that you control. Your player controller is you. Let's say you're in real life and you go up to control a car or um, or a machine or something. You are the player controller, and your game object is what you're controlling, essentially. So when we have we're going to use the player object for location, and then we're going to use the player controller for attributes. So for example, here, vector3, and I'm just going to say POS for position equals the player. So this would be our player obj dot transform dot position, and then our bool inside, so whether the player's inside. You could technically put that on either, but this is going to be a reference to our player controller is equal to player ctrl dot is inside factory. And we get that variable, which is very nice, makes things super easy. Don't have to see if there's any math we could do, so that's nice. Then we're going to do an int for the index of enemy to spawn, and we're going to set that equal to -1. To be honest, we're not going to use it like we use the other one where we say, hey, it's still -1, so we haven't found an enemy, move on to the other one. We're going to use the inside for that. However, if we try and send this command and it can't find the enemy, instead of tossing an exception, it's just going to decline to spawn anything. So that keeps it safe. So we're going to go ahead and say if we are inside. Oops, I hate when it does that. If we are inside, and we're going to do the else as well. Just write these out real quick here. Ended up getting two sets of brackets. So if we are inside, what do we have to do? Firstly, decide which indoor enemy to spawn. Okay. Then we have to decide, figure out where to spawn that enemy. Spawn the enemy. So we need to find a breaking point to like say, hey, maybe we shouldn't proceed. So if we don't find the enemy to spawn, we're going to put it here. So if we couldn't find enemy to spawn, stop. So we're going to say if index of enemy to spawn is equal to -1, return. And we could print something here. For now, we're not going to. And this is the same logic for if we are outside. So we're going to do this, and we're going to say which outdoor enemy. So this is essentially the steps we're going to be taking. And we're going to skip the first one because we've already done the first one in a previous video. We'll end up copying these over, which means they probably should be their own method, but I'm not too worried about it since it's only twice for each. So let's figure out where to spawn each enemy. So let's do the indoor first one, or the indoor one first, excuse me. So if we are inside, how do we spawn enemies? Well, we decide which vent to spawn them on, so we need to figure that out. First, let's get all vents. So enemy vent, and it's an array of vents equals tutorial mod base dot instance dot current round dot all enemy vents. So that gives us a reference to all of them. Now, since we're going to be picking the closest, there's it's a type of sorting algorithm. We loop through all of them once, and each time we check to see if it's lower than our current value. If it is, we set it to the new value until we hit the end, and we will have the lowest amount, or in the examples, it's typically the highest. So we say enemy vent, and we don't know what the closest vent is, so we say closest vent, and we're going to set it to equal to null since we don't know which one is. Then we say float distance equals math f dot infinite. You can put this like really high, but in this case we could just use infinity because everything's lower than infinity when calculated. Then we want to do a for each loop for each enemy vent. We could just say vent in vents. And this allows us to loop through each one and calculate the distance. So to calculate the distance, firstly we want to do vector 3. So just some vector math, diff equals vent dot floor node dot position minus POS for position. That's our current player position that we're looking at. Then we check the float cur distance, or we'll not check it, we set the cur distance equal diff dot square root magnitude. All square root magnitude does is calculate the length of the vector. So that calculates the length of it. So cur distance is really just current distance shorthand. If cur distance is less than distance, so if it's closer, then we want to say closest vent is equal to vent, and distance equals cur distance. And we're probably going to copy that over when we do the next one. So once we've done that, we've got the closest vent. We've determined where to spawn the enemy. We actually just want to go ahead and spawn the enemy. We've already done this logic, so spawn the indoor enemy here. What we can do is copy this one line here because we don't need the spawn vent. We've already got the vent that we want to spawn from. And instead of saying spawn vent, we're going to say closest vent. Here we go. And index of enemy to spawn, fortunately, we renamed that the same thing, so we don't need to recall that. So this is good. The only thing that'll be left for this one is to add that first part to check which enemy to actually pick, which index. So we're going to hold off on that for now and do that as alongside the outside one. So outside is not too dissimilar. So the spawning is the same, and figuring out is generally speaking the same. It's just slightly different syntax because we don't use vents, we use normal game objects because that's how it's used to actually spawn an object. So we say var objs equals game object dot find game objects. Find game objects with tag, and we're going to use the outside AI node tag again. And then we're going to say game object closest spawn equals null. And then float distance equals mathf dot infinity. And then for each game object, obj in objs. And we'll go back to our inside method here, inside this for each loop, copy this, come back down. And what we need to change is the vent.floor.position to obj.transform. Not objs, obj.transform.position. And then closest vent equals vent. We need to say closest spawn equals obj. And distance equals cur distance is fine. And then right next to this or afterwards, we can say we're just going to go ahead and go up because I am not retyping all of it, to be honest. We just need to copy these two lines, paste them down, and we need to change. Really, the only thing we need to change is this parameter, is the AI node that we select. So get rid of this. And we just want to say closest spawn dot transform dot position. And we can actually move this quaternion dot Euler up to this line. There we go. So that is all set. There is one final thing I want to do. Oh, OBJ doesn't like it. Oh, I am already using OBJ somewhere. Where am I using OBJ? We're going to go ahead and... Okay, it is what it is. I will say object. Oh, can't even use object. That's right. Game OBJ. There we go. Where is OBJ being used outside of this scope? Is it up here? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh well, not gonna complain too much about it. That's just kind of odd. Okay, anyway, so the only thing I want to do, oh, here, I literally just created OBJ. Anyway, okay, the only thing I want to do is say, if OBJ is null, or if closest spawn is null, return. I think we can, well, we'll leave it like that. So if closest spawn is equal to null, return, and up here, if, what is it, closest vent is equal to null, return. Because if it fails, this will toss an exception if this is null. So this is good. This should be it, except for determining which enemy to spawn. So let's go up here, and this is our outdoor enemy list. So we just have to remember that. Copy the for each loop. Head back down. If outside, oop, looks good. It looks like it pasted just fine. And then for the inside enemy, this is the indoor enemy list. We can do that right here. Since we organized things, it was easy to find. Okay, so now we've got this. Let's go ahead and toss this in. And I think, here we go. Okay, so I had it here for testing. So just like we did in the previous video where we tested just by opening the menu, I want to test here. I'm going to give one for the mouth dog, which is the outside dog, and one for the jester. So if we're outside, it'll spawn a jester, or I mean a dog, and if we're inside, it should be spawning a shoot, I don't even know what I said. If we're inside, jester, outside, dog. That's pretty much the thing. So let's go ahead and head into a game and test it out. No errors on the loading, so that's good so far. We'll go ahead and hide our, what do you call this, Unity Explorer. We don't need it open right now. And let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so I really quickly want to spawn a dog right away, just to see. So I expect it to spawn like right there. I hear it. Where'd he spawn? I heard the dog. He's over here somewhere. Oh. It really did pick the nearest location. So I think we're far enough away. I'm going to go over here. Okay, so we'll test that a couple more when we leave outside, when we go back outside. But I do want to test the jester. I'm actually curious. Okay, that definitely works. Go away. Not interested in your free real estate. Alright, always hard to figure out where they spawn. Oh, here we go. This should be a dead end, right? Oh, no, it's not. Oh, nope, it is. Perfect. So the only problem with the logic here is we're not like saying closest point from here to over here. When we say closest point, it is literally the closest point from point A to point B. So if there is a spawn point right on the other side of that wall, it will spawn them there. I spawn one. Let's see if it worked. Let me see if one spawned firstly. Okay, so we got a jester. We just gotta find the damn thing. Sometimes the nearest vent isn't very close until later in the game when more vents have opened. Based on where I was, he could be... Okay, he's not over here. He could be downstairs. I want to find the little bugger so I can see more of them spawning. Here he is. Alright, where's your little spawn hole? Oh, there it is. Alright, we got him spawning right there. How do I get more to spawn somewhere? Fuck off. Okay, I need to leave. They're gonna kill me. So, that's the nearest open vent, which is fine. I want to go back outside and spawn a couple more. Is this not the way I went? Oh, I'm fucking lost. That's just... Can you piss off? Alright. Nope. Alright. So we know it works. That's all that matters. So that's spawning enemies nearby. We'll use that for fun. So what we'll probably do is add like a list of players to the menu with like a spawn button next to them or something. It's like spawn enemy on player. And then like it'll be the selected enemy in the like in the thing, whatever. So we're gonna do something like that. With that said, that's today's video. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.